Over the past year, my administration has taken extraordinary steps to make sure the United States has all of the critical minerals and rare earths that we need. We're investing in mining projects, we're expediting federal permitting. The federal permitting, and a lot of it is Lee Zeldin, who's been fantastic, but federal permitting is such a big deal.
All right, we're now at we're at the core shack. Just drove about 45 minutes from the hotel, and you can see behind me, this is where the cores end up. After they're processed, they end up in these bags back here. But what's really interesting and what most people don't even recognize is that what you're holding in your hand, your phone, your remote control, even the jets in the sky, the satellites in space, all rely on the stuff that they pull out of the ground right here.
We're announcing the creation of the U.S. Strategic Critical Minerals Reserve, the first ever stockpile of critical minerals that you've been hearing so much about. For years, American businesses have risked running out of critical minerals during market disruptions. Today, we're launching what will be known as Project Vault to ensure that American businesses and workers are never harmed by any shortage. We don't want to ever go through what we went through a year ago. Just as although it did work out, thank you. Just as we have long had a strategic petroleum reserve and a stockpile of critical minerals for national defense, we're now creating this reserve for American industry so we don't have any problems. This historic initiative will combine $10 billion in export-import bank financing with $2 billion in private sector financing, and we even expect the American taxpayer to make a profit from the interest on the loan used to start the Project Vault. It's an amazing thing. They've been talking about it for years. Other presidents did a lot of talking, but they didn't do anything.
The vote and what's in that executive order?
The vote was 224 to 195 to pass the Critical Minerals Dominance Act. It will allow the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, to geologically map the country and determine which federal land can be leased for mining. Swift action on both leasing and permitting will take market share from China. Beijing accused of frequently weaponizing their rare earth dominance with trade barriers. Of course, this legislation still needs to pass the Senate, but it's looking good.
So we're about 40 minutes from the township of Houston, which is just south of Smithers. This part of the world is part of a big orogeny, so a mountain building phase, and that's where you get these big granites and magmatic systems that push porphyry coppers up and out of the ground. And they're basically, intrusive complexes that sit on the edge of big stratovolcanoes. So, if you go back 50 million years ago here, this area was studded with massive stratovolcanoes, and these porphyry copper systems are the remnants of those volcanoes and where they've concentrated metal-rich fluid. And so, just up the road, there's one of the world's biggest copper mines owned by Teck. But there's copper deposits all the way through this belt, starting in Alaska and going all the way down to the southern tip of Argentina and Chile. And it's that same subducting plate that comes off the Pacific Ridge subduction zone and that plate, and that's what drives that magmatism that creates all of these coastal mountain belts, but also a lot of that mineralisation. And that includes, porphyry copper mineralisation, which is, pretty much the most important style of mineralisation for the provision of copper to the planet. But you also have higher level deposits like epithermal gold deposits, silver deposits. So these magmatic systems drive a huge amount of mineral deposit development, and this area is famous for these porphyry copper deposits.
It starts and I'll show you. It starts with these pieces of core samples in front of you. This is where it all begins. And then it gets split so they can get a better look at it. And then it ends up in those bags. Now, you can hear in this shack back here, you can hear them cutting. They're splitting it up right back here. You can see even more. More of these core samples. You can hear them drilling right in. You can hear them cutting it. This is where it all starts. But they got to get it out of the ground first. And once they get it out of the ground, bags for assay, figure out exactly what's in there, what it's worth, and it gets sent off for even further processing, which ends up in the devices that you use every single day. So this is only one step in the process, and you can tell we're in a remote area out here in what's the town? What's this area called? This is Houston, Texas. Not Houston, Texas. Houston, Canada. Houston, British Columbia. Very, very different Houston, and a much colder Houston, I should say. But we got a great team here. I should point out that we got some other YouTubers in the house as well, and I should probably introduce you to some of them here. Cyrus, this is Cyrus.
How we doing? Yeah, pleasure to be with you guys.
Yeah, he's got a YouTube channel. Check him out.
All right.
What's the name of the channel?
Cyrus Jansen.
Cyrus
We're covering
Jansen.
geopolitics around the world, and we study geopolitics because it influences the market and how you guys make money, and this is where the future of our technology is. I mean, Gary, we're here looking at the copper today, and when you're looking at these drill samples, you're seeing the raw copper right in it. I mean, that's the future technology, right? That could be the copper in your car, your cell phone, you know, an F-35. I mean, there's so much use for copper, and this is where it starts right here. So we're taking our viewers to the very beginning, you know, and this is what America needs, is more local production, and this is what North America is doing right now.
This is the North American domestic resurgence to get us off the dependency of the international supply chains that have the ability to choke us out. And I can't stress this enough. You hear me saying this in every video I've been doing about this, is that right now we are in a very vulnerable position. And if we do not get these core samples, if we do not get this stuff out of the ground in our hemisphere, we're screwed. They could choke us off and we're done. So like the story I told you before about the SR-71 Blackbird, that's a Cold War story. Okay, that goes back years and years and years. But we're in a very different Cold War right now. And it has to deal with China, it has to deal with Russia and their ability to hold those minerals back from us. So this is right here, what you're seeing right here, this is the beginning of the resurgence of our restoration for precious metals and minerals that our nation desperately needs. And that's all part of President Trump's initiative that he just launched a couple of weeks ago. And we have another YouTuber here. We got Patrick, sorry. Patrick, introduce yourself.
I'm Patrick Lancaster, independent journalist and YouTuber like yourself, and I normally cover the Russia-Ukraine war zone. I've been doing that since the war started in 2014, but now spreading out to see how much the situation here in Canada is being affected by the economic geopolitics around the world, and specifically the United States, and also the new news of the so-called separatism in Alberta and others call treason. So we're going to be going deep into that, but while we're here, we're looking at the infrastructure, and as Gary said, the mining industry here and the exploration, getting as in-depth as possible.
So check out these guys' YouTube channels. You're going to find a wealth of information. These guys do deep dives, great content.
So this is the first of our holes next to the Thera discovery that we made last year, and it's pretty exciting. It looks like we're on the edge of a discovery here. You can see pyrite, chalcopyrite, a lot of mineralization in there, plenty of veining and stock working, which is what you want to see. So this is looking really exciting. I feel like we could be on the verge of the discovery of another serious porphyry system here. It's a great start, great drill hole.
And looks like are we able to go in there?
Yeah. It's a little packed now.
See if we can try to get into this. We're going in the love shack now. This is, look at that. There's ice on the floor. This is where you guys are cutting it all up, huh?
Cut the core. So it comes up. Right, Steve, you take us through how it goes.
So it gets processed back in the shack here that we haven't even gotten into yet because we've been too busy looking at everything outside. And the core gets divided up into sample intervals, and then it's brought out here, and Braden runs it through the saw to split it in half longitudinally. Half goes back into the box as a record of what we've drilled, so that will stay permanently so that we can always go back to it and refer to it. And the other half gets bagged up and goes to the assay lab. So we can find out how much copper, how much moly, how much gold, how much silver is in it. Yeah.
That's good looking stuff. Look at that. That's all. That grey is all molybdenum, moly, which is mission critical for so many businesses, particularly oil and gas.
Say that again, Craig.
Molybdenum is mission. That grey stuff there's moly in it. It's a very high value metal. It's I think 6 times the price of copper at the moment. And critical particularly for oil and gas drilling and lubricants. These are classic porphyritic rock textures here. You've got veining, all this quartz veining through it, and the porphyry are these big crystals in a finer background, which is what you're looking for. So that's a beautiful bit of porphyry copper mineralization there. You've got multiple veining episodes, so you can see these veins come through and they get crisscrossed and cut up by other veins. But the important thing is it's just chock-a-block full of chalcopyrite. You've got potassic alteration, which means you're at the core of the porphyry system where you get the highest grades. And here you can see it just started with copper all through here. Some grey molybdenum up here.
Point to the copper specifically.
So that's those little dots there, are all this copper, but you've also got copper in some of these veins here. Molybdenum in those veins as well. So that's a beautiful bit of core. If I were to guess, I'd say that's probably 1+% copper, which is what you want to see for a big deposit. If we find 1 billion tonnes of that, which I think we're a very good chance of doing, then we've got a very, very, very big copper mine on our hands. Beautiful looking rock.
So then these core samples this is just part of the exploratory process. Will these ever actually become part of a larger refinement process? Or because obviously there's value sitting here,
yes,
and this is all part of the exploratory process. But once you guys get the mine into full production, what happens to all this stuff that you've used to explore?
So that gets kept. You try and hold on to this as long as you can. It's part of the record. And if if a project doesn't go ahead, you want to have that. Other explorers want to have the advantage of having that core for forevermore. And so, this gets stored often in places, around the world, particularly in Australia, for example. Government core storage facilities are set up, so that core all gets kept for in perpetuity.
So these are never actually kept. They're kept, but they're never actually refined because it's part of the record.
Part of the record. That's right. So what you really, this is sort of ground zero for exploration. Of course, we've done the generative work. We've looked around. We've explored. We've done soil sampling, geophysics, boots on ground mapping to figure out, where to drill those holes. We did that in this area over the past couple of years. The first hole we drilled back in August last year, I think we hit 250 metres at about 0.5% copper equivalent. That was a discovery of that deposit. We kept drilling. We've now done 10 holes there. This hole, I think, is our 11th hole in that area, and clearly looking very good. You know, it's full of mineralisation. It's exactly what we want to see. And so, if you know, we'll drill another 100 to 200 holes in that area, prove up the resource around it, and then that's what will become a mining project.
So tomorrow we're going to be going to the actual location where these are taken out of the ground.
Tomorrow we'll be standing right on the spot where this has come out of the ground.
So yeah, tomorrow we'll be flying in the helicopter into the Thera deposit right there at that star. Star marks the spot. And that's the Poplar project boundary. Yeah, so that's where we've had our success. What we've got is this geophysical anomaly that is in this hatched pattern here that has caught our attention. We thought it might be a mineralized center, and so what we did was we followed that up with some soil sampling, and this is a map of soil sample results over that area. And there's a completely coincident with our geophysical anomaly is a zone of very high copper in soils. The hotter colors on this map mean more copper in the soil, and so it just added further weight to our idea that this was a good prospect and needed to be drilled. So this is all before we ever drilled a single hole here. We did this work.
And you were saying that previously other companies had been here, but they just missed the mark.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. They drilled some of these other holes are actually marked on here, right? So within this broader alteration zone, there are a scattering of old historical drill holes, but they all missed the key area.
And Vizsla found it.
Yeah. We started in about 21, spun out of Vizsla Silver. I joined about that time. Vizsla Silver, of course, pivoted to the Mexican Silver Project, and that left the copper assets orphaned, so they spun them out to Vizsla Copper. And none of those original assets are with us anymore. We've gotten rid of all of them because we needed bigger and better projects. And the first one was this wood gem project down by Williams Lake. Poplar, we closed that in April of 24. So that's the latest porphyry project for us. And then Palmer, of course, has made the news in a big way with that massive sulfide mineralization in Alaska. So the key thing that ties all these together is copper, and also the fact that they're all in easily accessible mining country, right? It's not in the Golden Triangle, which is a really tough place to explore, the Tootagon, which is a really tough place to explore. So yeah, we've purposefully tried to stay where it's easy to get at it. And so what has that meant in the last 3 years? We've cobbled together it's a little over 4 billion pounds of copper in the ground through resources at Wood Gem and at Poplar. There's already a known deposit at Poplar. And then and then Palmer. So what's that? 4 billion pounds of copper, almost 2 million ounces of gold, and now 1.6 billion pounds of zinc.
Wow.
And so, but yeah, the main reason we're all here is because of this Thera discovery, right? With our very first hole, we announced it in July of last year. We hit 345 meters of 0.43% copper equivalent. Started really close to surface, just 11 meters below surface. And so a little bit more about Poplar itself. You can see where it is. I just mentioned that all that concentrate coming from the Huckleberry mine traveled up this road here, right through the corner of the Poplar project and onto the Port of Stewart. There's a 140 kilovolt power line that runs down through here to Huckleberry, right through the property again. So it's a pretty easy spot to put a mine into production. I was mine geologist down here for 3 years, 97 to 2000, just as that opened up. So I'm somewhat familiar with the rocks. It's a huge piece of ground, 47,000 hectares. It's got that existing Poplar deposit on it already. That's basically why we liked it. But
So you bought the Poplar project from another company?
we actually bought another company.
Right,
U-
right.
Universal Copper.
Okay.
Had the Poplar project.
Right.
And they were struggling in the markets, and so we just saw an opportunity to get them. It was like $3 million worth of Vizsla Copper stock to acquire
Right.
Universal Copper. So it was a really good, cheap,
Yeah.
typical
And I think, Steve, the
Craig Perry kind of deal.
And I think that's the difference between you guys is that there's so many companies that are exploring, but your specialty is exploration and then actually building that mine and actually taking it to production, which so many people just try to explore and then sell it off, but you guys see it to the end and really get it out of the ground and process it.
Yeah, we want to make sure all our options are open, so we'll march down that path of actually building it, and then if somebody makes you an offer you can't refuse, you won't. So
Right.
so we closed this deal April of 24, and so that meant that our due diligence was done through the winter, right? And so we couldn't actually get up here and look at the rocks, couldn't get our feet on the ground. So we just decided to buy it for this Poplar deposit. It's quite sizable, quite a nice deposit. And any exploration upside would be gravy at that point. And this is actually a map from Universal Copper, and it's just about all we had for evidence that there was exploration upside. All these orange circles were theirs. And so the first day we could get up here and not have any snow was June of 24. And there were 5 of us. We split up into 2 groups. 3 of us went up to the north to look at these orange circles. 2 guys went down to the south to look at these ones. And they came back at the end of the day. We met up and they said, "You're not going to believe what we've seen up there. There's an alteration zone that's many kilometers long. There's probably a porphyry deposit in the middle of it somewhere. And this is just an incredible way to start." And it was true. So this gray shape on here is that alteration zone that we ended up mapping out over the course of about 5 days. You can see that other people have drilled it. All these little measles here, these specks are historical drill holes. So others had clearly recognized the alteration zone, but hadn't actually found the copper deposit that was in there.
And how or where it comes from. You go through life with technology and different things, and people they don't know where their food comes from. This type of stuff, they don't realise where it can end up. It can end up in some of the most important. Every stage and everything that's happened in this world is all built upon minerals. So it's freeing the world from certain unfriendly sources, right? This is where it all begins.
You could say it's liberating the world.
We could say it's liberating the world.